Wild Terror.
Welcome back. Time for some real politics, some quick debates on some headlines that caught our eye. First up, Democratic Senator Carl Levin of Michigan. He ain't coming back. He is not seeking re-election in 2014, says he wants to do his job as Senate Armed Services Chairman without the, quote, distraction of campaigning for re-election. Levin was first elected to the Senate in 1978. He's the longest serving senator in Michigan history. His retirement creates an open seat for Democrats in a state where Republicans have been faring well in recent elections. Democrats will also have to defend open seats in West Virginia, Iowa, and New Jersey, as Senators Tom Harkin, Frank Lautenberg, and Jay Rockefeller have all announced that they will retire. On the Republican side, Saxby Chambliss of Georgia and Mike Johanns of Nebraska, that's where the J came from, also announcing their retirements. Current breakdown of the Senate, 55 Democrats, 45 Republicans, 2 independents, but you can treat them with Democrats because they caucus with them. Overall, 35 of the 100 seats in the Senate up for election next year. 21 of those seats now held by Democrats, 14 held by Republicans. Joe, you're the only one at the table who's run for office. You're the only one who's run for office. It is a big. You can understand his complaints.
Completely. I have a lot of respect for his decision. At the end of the day, he would probably have spent the next year, and Scott can tell us, the next 2 years running for office, raising money, tempering and maybe moderating his positions. Now he can be free to work hard 24/7 on the issues he was elected for. I have a lot of respect for that kind of decision. By all accounts, Senator Levin's a good man, and I'm hopefully he's successful in his endeavors.
Is the Senate are Democrats in the Senate in trouble? No?
No, so it's not. I mean, the seats that are up, many of them are safe. There's too big a margin. It's just not in play.
Okay. And you're assuming Michigan's going to stay Democratic, New Jersey's going to stay Democratic, West Virginia.
I presume Corey's in. It'll stay Democratic, Jersey, but I think West Virginia's safe. I just don't. I think the Senate's not in play.
Okay.
I'm just curious, if you don't mind me just asking a quick question. I've never been a candidate. You just said that it's extremely taxing on you. What goes through the process?
I'll tell you, I never tell friends or people I love that a good idea is to run for office. Unless you're compelled, unless there's a calling, unless you feel like that's your thing that you have to do. And we represent some folks who, they are the consummate public servants. Diane Savino, Hakeem Jeffries, Dan Court, some real good, solid people. But you have to really feel like that is your calling, because there are so many ways for folks like Joe to contribute that give you more freedom and more control over your life and more freedom for your family and more ability to go to a diner.
That's actually a little depressing.
I was interested. I was talking with a local politician from Long Island on Saturday. And he's been very successful, and he retired from the police force. He said, you know what, when he started, he wished he'd just picked out 25 kids, helped mentor them, and help them progress going forward. He felt like he would have had a bigger impact. So politics is a tough position, and then also, what can you do once you're there?
Wow, from the Senate, we're going to get to a time when can we even get people to fill these seats? Somehow I have a feeling we'll always be able to find people. All right, next up, one of those people filling a seat in Washington, Representative Sean Patrick Maloney, offering his 2 cents on the upcoming New York City mayoral race. Speaking with Capital New York, he said, quote, bottom line, Chris Quinn is tough enough for New York. She can make tough decisions and knows what it takes to get stuff done. You can't make everybody happy as mayor of New York, and if you try, you're not going to be a very good mayor. Maloney is New York's first openly gay member of Congress, but said sexuality had nothing to do with the endorsement. The reasons 1, 2, and 3, this is a quote from him, are she's tough, she's experienced, she's effective. The fact that she'll make history is icing on the cake. Sean Patrick Maloney is a friend of the program. He's been on many times. First, when I saw the headline that he was endorsing Christine Quinn, and first of all, a Hudson Valley congressman making an endorsement in the New York City mayor's race seemed a little far afield. But my first reaction that it was based on at least in part, on sexual orientation. Is that not, I'm curious if that jumped off the page to anybody else too, and
Well, I mean, one would have to imagine that sexual orientation somehow, some way had something to do with this. But Chris Quinn has been around for a while. She has a real shot of becoming New York's first woman mayor, openly gay. The challenge is going to come. Don't write off Bill Thompson. He may not have been that active, but remember he came within, 4 points of Bloomberg the last time around? Bill Thompson, those two, I hope they don't become Fernando Ferrer and Mark Green and thus allow the Republican candidate to ease on in there. Because at some point, they're going to try and keep the gloves on, but at some point, especially if they're in the runoff, they're going to have to go after each other.
I'm curious about I mentioned before, Hudson Valley Congressman, New York City mayoral endorsement. What's the value of picking up all of these endorsements? Is it just to be able to rattle off a list? Is there a financial assistance? What's the benefit of, other than the obvious ones like the current mayor or the New York Times editorial page or whatever? What's the upside?
Sometimes on March 8th, on a Friday night, on a slow news day, you could have 4 people talking about the endorsement you got that day.
So it worked like a charm, is what you're saying.
And I think Sean
perfectly.
Patrick Maloney is trying to establish himself not just for the Hudson Valley. Sean Patrick Maloney is someone you better keep an eye on. He's trying to establish himself as a New York City player, not just here locally, but New York City.
How do you do that? How do you
Easily.
go
by
from
doing the
Hudson
things
Valley
that he's doing now. Easily.
Really?
Remember, his residence is in New York City. I believe it's still in New York City. So it's quite easily.
I also just caution, don't forget we've got a very strong Republican field I was just last night with some of them.
There's a lot of the field. We haven't really gotten into that yet. I think it may be still a tad early on that one. Moving on, is Mayor Cory Booker trying to raise his national profile? Mayor Booker pushing for healthier eating habits today, working alongside the Partnership for a Healthier America, the organization that works with First Lady Michelle Obama, convened its second national summit this week to discuss solutions to ending America's childhood obesity crisis. Booker spoke passionately about how obesity can have a far-reaching impact.
Rates of obesity have tripled in the last 30 years alone. It is the American health crisis of our generation. And if we do nothing, it's going to drag our economy down and undermine the potential of our kids.
But of course, the big question everybody wants to know is how his potential Senate campaign might go. Polls recently obtained by the Star-Ledger shows that Booker got a 70% favorable rating among voters in Newark. Poll was commissioned in October by some of Booker's most staunch opponents. But since then, Booker has made his intentions to run for the Senate clear. He did it before Frank Lautenberg said he was retiring. That angered some New Jersey Democrats. We asked him about that earlier today.
We were in conversations with the senator's office. We worked with him to craft the announcement we actually used. We didn't do anything different than what other people in the state did, which is just say, hey, we're interested in the job, but we were waiting to see what he would do. So, you know, that's passed now. The senator, the great senator, a statesman from our Senate, has said he's retiring. We're looking to the future right now, which is, I haven't declared my candidacy, but I said I'm interested in the job. But right now, the job I have is being mayor.
So guys, we get caught up in process a lot. We follow politics. So, he jumped the gun and stepped on Lautenberg and forced Lautenberg to make it, or he doesn't play well with, local party leaders and he's got rough elbows. Does that matter when it comes to voters when making their decisions?
No, voters don't care. This guy's a rock star, and he'll guarantee this Senate stays in, this seat stays in Democratic hands. He's well respected across the board. Voters don't care about that inside baseball stuff.
But there is going to be a steady stream of, Newark hasn't done this well, or Booker has this problem. I mean, we're going to be hearing this all the way through.
It works well until he hits the wrong person with one of those ambitious elbows. And he almost hit the wrong person in terms of Senator Lautenberg, who it appeared almost was willing to run for re-election just to put Cory Booker in his place.
When you were running, Joe, how much of there was, you got to make nice with this person, he's a big player, he's an influential guy? I mean, I don't want you to...
No, sure. No, actually, it's actually quite interesting. Party politics and the parties themselves as institutions is horrifically difficult. When I ran, I ran against 2 different Tea Party candidates that had nothing to do with the parties. The parties are losing power, so I would have wished that Mr. Booker would have worked with the party establishment to get the announcement, because I think it would have been on side. I agree with Scott, it's not an issue for the voters, but I think as parties, as institutions, are losing clout, and I think that's unfortunate.
Do you agree that if a Booker had acted in a sort of maverick in the party kind of way 10 years ago, the impact would have been greater? 20 years ago, the impact would have been greater?
I actually disagree with Joe. I think the loss of party organizational power is a good thing for our country, and it allows us to have folks like Cory Booker run for office, which is a good thing for democracy.
Doesn't it also allow Christine O'Donnell to run for the
Senate? It allows for a whole range of folks like Mike Bloomberg to run for office that they might not have been able to do 20 years ago when these organizations were strong. I don't know if that's inherently bad.
And this is with you advising people, hey, if you want to keep your private life private, don't run. If it's
you bet.
I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
I wouldn't.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break here. Now I'm depressed. When we return, we're going to tell you some surprising people who attended the funeral of Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez. Our Talk of the Table segment is next. Stay with us.